So if you clicked on the video, you want to know why I moved from a Synology NAS to Truenas. To give you some background, I wouldn't consider myself as a super techie person, although I've dabbled in a lot of tech. But in terms of my NAS use cases, I've always leaned towards the more user-friendly ones. So going from Synology to Truenas, as you would see later in the video, is a bit complex. I'll give you a few reasons why I did this. The initial issue I had with my Synology NAS is it had 8 terabytes of space on it, and then I was always running out of space, right? And the way I set it up was not great, to be honest, because there was no redundancy. I basically just plugged in 2 4 terabyte drives and then used up all the space. It's not like I have like a backup solution, right? So I ran into a situation where there wasn't enough space anymore. And the second, maybe more important reason why I moved to Truenas is because one of my drives crashed. Imagine 4 terabytes and it's almost full, and I have no way of backing it up, right? My options were either I buy an external hard drive and back it up that way so I could save the data and then replace the drive, or create a new NAS, which is what I did. I've always wanted to try out building a true NAS myself. I've seen a lot of videos around this, and there's a lot of people that have gotten great results. And ZFS, everybody says ZFS is really nice because of the snapshot features. So I wanted to try that. I wanted to try a project and build one myself. And then overall, I wanted to have more space and a better backup solution. That's what I wanted. One of the last reasons why I moved to Truenas, well, not really moved, why I added Truenas to my home storage solution is because building it is relatively cheaper than buying a Synology NAS again. Okay, so what hardware did I use to make my Synology NAS? Let's start with the case. I used my old Fractal Node 304. I had an old PC in it before, but the motherboard died, so it was just sitting there. So I figured, why not just build a new NAS motherboard and build a true NAS using that? And because I had a PC in it before, I already had an existing power supply, so I just used that. For the motherboard, I used the Topton N100 motherboard. The challenge with this one is you can only get it from AliExpress, but the specs are pretty nice, and you can even have options to add hard drives and memory so that when you buy it, everything is installed. I will link exactly what I bought from AliExpress if you're interested to see that or buy that. I've seen great reviews on this on NAS specific channels, so I thought maybe I'd go with the same route. I could have gone with the regular motherboard, but the problem with that is it ends up being more expensive, and then it's always short of SATA ports. And if I wanted to upgrade to a 10 gigabit NIC, I had to buy that separately, whereas this one already had it. In fact, it has 3 Ethernet ports, one 10 gig and 2 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. So if I wanted to upgrade in the future to 10 gigabit Ethernet speeds, local transfer, I could do that too without buying any new hardware. So that's why I opted for this one. And for the drives, I bought 2 refurbished 12 terabyte drives and another 2 4 terabyte drives. Everything is in mirror mode, so really I only had about 13.5 terabyte of usable space. And what's the reason why I went with this hardware? I've already spoke about it a little bit. It's way cheaper than buying a pre-built Synology NAS. It has multiple Ethernet ports with higher speeds, so it's kind of like future-proofing in my end at least. And I already had some existing hardware that I can use, which makes it a lot more cheaper. But I can put the total of how much I spent just for your information, so if you want to build a similar system, you can do that. I would suggest buying refurbished drives. I've had the system running for a couple of weeks now, and so far there are no issues. So why don't we go to the build process? I leave a time lapse of that here, and I leave notes as you watch it so you know what happened, and we'll summarize after the build. Okay, so after the build, I would like to say that there were a couple of snags that maybe some of them I did not expect, and then some of them I underestimated. Setting up Truenas is not as straightforward as the videos you would watch on YouTube claim to be. A lot of the guides that you would see there, some of them are outdated in terms of some specific settings, you know, where to click, what to do. And that's because I think Truenas has a lot of versions and they come out fast, so that when you watch a guide in YouTube, some of the features or some of the settings may be different. So keep that in mind. I had some trouble figuring out what to do exactly. The other thing too that I realized as I had already built it was the guys that I watched always said that there was this expanded app store that you can add in Truenas named TrueCharts, but at the time that I built mine, the TrueCharts catalog or repository was already down. It's not a deal breaker, but it would have been nice to have access to more apps. There's a whole story about it I'm not even aware of. Nevertheless, you still get access to the apps, but these are like official Truenas apps. And also, the setup process is maybe one of the things that I underestimated. I thought it'll be like a half-day process maybe, or 4 hours to set everything up, you know, setting up your folders, your permissions, what kind of shares you want, you know, the backup, the data protection and everything. I thought at the most it'll be like maybe a day or half a day, because that's almost what happened when I set up my Synology NAS. For this one, it took me maybe 3 days to do the whole thing, download the app, set up everything. One of the things that I did find challenging was actually setting up permissions and folders. It is not as straightforward as you would think. I consider myself as a little bit of a tech savvy person, but this is a totally different level. If you're not comfortable diving into settings like making permission, I didn't even know that this had like 2 types of permission, like a Unix permission, and then there's another one called ACL. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you can learn it definitely, but then you'd have to spend time. So that's maybe something that you have to accept going in, that there is a learning curve. Not everything is straightforward. Okay, and then maybe one more thing coming from a Synology NAS. The experience is totally different. I mean, the Synology NAS almost acts like a desktop PC. You can move your mouse inside the web interface. It looks and feels like a typical desktop PC, and they made it that way, I think, to appeal to more regular users, right? Truenas, while it has like, you know, a dashboard and you can click on stuff, a lot of it is not really super user friendly. And some apps even you have to configure like YAML files, right? These are like config files. You have to go in and actually type stuff, and then in some cases you even have to like SSH into a terminal. The experience on some of these is like using a terminal in a very old PC. That's how maybe I can compare it to. But yeah, if you're not prepared to do that, or at least spend some time learning it, you're not gonna enjoy the process. So you better think of that before going in. Okay, so what's the result and what are some of the lessons learned throughout this process? Well, after spending time on it, I would say it's definitely worth it. I now know how to set up Truenas and make it work, so that's an additional skill. And then I now have a better, robust NAS solution, and I would say it was worth the effort for me. And that's personal. Some people might not find the effort worth it, but for me, it was definitely worth it. I did save a lot of money compared to me buying an equivalent hardware from Synology. I have to admit, I miss some of the interface and how it looks in Synology DSM, but I'm okay. I mean, as long as it works, it backs up my devices, I have a lot of storage, that's the best part. Lessons learned on this, maybe next time I'll carve out more time to actually do this, 1 or 2 dedicated days. That's probably how long I would think, you need to make everything work. Again, that's just me. Some people might do it even faster, maybe depending on what you already know. Maybe don't underestimate how involved the process will be. I definitely underestimated it, and of course, it was frustrating because I thought it was simple and easy, no hiccups, but then it really kind of like was more than I was expecting. Oh, this is something new. Originally, when I would like learn things, like YouTube would always be my first go-to. But surprisingly, I had leveraged ChatGPT a lot for this. It is surprising how much, well, maybe it's just me, I'm surprised that ChatGPT actually helped me throughout the process setting up everything. In some cases, I found that it's much more updated in what it knows compared to some YouTube videos. So yeah, maybe going in, consider that as well. At least for me, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so now let me show you like what the finished product is. Let's jump into the desktop view so I can show you what I've set up so far. Okay, so everything is pretty much set up. As you can see, the system is up and running. I finally have it in a state where it's working. I have to like do more tweaks, but at the moment it's working. It's backing up all my information, so that's perfect, right? So you're seeing here the dashboard. So this basically tells you, okay, this is the CPU usage, this is how much memory I have. I have 16 gigs. Probably need to upgrade that and buy another 16 gigabyte memory. And then these are the network interfaces. As you saw in the start of the video, the motherboard had 3 network interfaces. One of them is 10 gigabit and then 2 of them is 2.5 gigabit. So that's there. I have them all connected, but it's not really doing anything. It's not doing any link aggregation because I don't have proper switches for that. So it's just connected at this point. And then here you'll see I have quick view of the storage. This is how much free space I have on each. So this is just the overview or the dashboard. You can actually customize it if you wanted to. I'm just leaving it at default. I'll quickly move into the storage. So this page basically gives you an overview of how much storage you have. You can see that I have 2 data sets. Basically, I have one which is the main one, 2 12 terabyte drives in mirror. So there's effectively almost 11 terabytes of usable space, and I've already used almost 75% of it. And then I have another 4 terabyte data set, which is also in mirror mode, so that I have used about 50% of that. A large portion of the used space here is media, right? I'm using this Truenas installation as my main media hub. And then I'll quickly show you the data sets. So the data sets here, there's 2 of them. These are all the folders. As you can see, just my media is like 4 terabytes. That's all my movies and everything. It's there. And then I'm also saving the YouTube raw footage here. That's about 500 gigs. And then I have our shared drive for the family, which is also here. So yeah, so everything's there. I guess one of the good things about Truenas is the ability for snapshots, right? So I've already set this up in a way that it takes snapshots of the storage. It also takes snapshots of my Synology NAS. And then it takes snapshots of all the folders that we have in the network, right? So everything is backed up in this NAS. And then you have your usual scrub tasks and then smart tests. And then moving on, the most interesting piece of having Truenas is these are all the applications that I've installed. You can actually, they have like an app store here, and you can see pretty much all the apps that they have. It's pretty significant actually. I mean, I don't see myself like installing all of them, but the ones that I do have installed, I'll just go through it quickly. I have Plex, which I've turned this into my media server, and then I have your usual downloader, and then your usual indexers. So that's all there. I have I have like sonar and radar, and then I guess Prowler is using indexers, right? So it basically an automated download station. Pretty much I think most people do that. So that kind of like enables my Plex. And then I have Tailscale, which is my VPN, so I can access this remotely when I'm in a different country or outside of my home. And then I have Nextcloud, which is your Dropbox. Actually, it functions like a Dropbox, so you have your own cloud. You can store documents, you can store pictures, everything else you can store there, and then you can have the same application on your PC, on your Mac, and everything syncs, right? So that's pretty cool. This rsync, I just use this to back up my information from my Synology NAS into here. So that's why I use that. I have Home Assistant. I haven't really configured that yet, but it's there. And then sync thing. This functions similar to Synology Drive, if you're familiar with that. It basically syncs folders from here to anywhere else, like in another PC that you may have. It syncs the folders. So that's also there. Yeah. So that's basically the installation. I'm still using my Synology NAS, by the way, but I'm using this mostly now for my IP cameras. So this effectively stores all my IP camera footage. I use my Synology NAS to back up all my computers actually in my house. So I have one PC and one Mac, and they get backed up. So it just backs up my PCs. Yeah, and then for my photos, I'm actually using Synology Photos. I'm not using Nextcloud in my Truenas. I just like this because Synology Photos is much more user-friendly. So yeah, I'm still using both, but most of my files really are now stored in Truenas. I've moved everything significant here. Yeah, and I'm using Synology for the, more user-friendly premium features, I would say. So I'm using both environments. Yeah, so that's my current NAS setup. In the future, I will probably add another data set on my TrueNAS, which are SSDs for like quicker data access, and I'll probably start using the 10 gigabit LAN connection just as a dedicated connection to my PC. I'll probably do that. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, so that's the end of the video. I hope you learned something throughout this process. I definitely learned a lot from this. Would I do it again? Yes, probably. In the end, I did enjoy kind of like doing all of this. It was a little bit time consuming, but in the end it was fine. And yeah, so if you like this video, please make sure to leave a like. That always helps the video and the channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.